Yeah, I have 5 dice remaining. We might as well end round. Wanna use that Liben. We can probably play a bit greedy here. Collei will be able to survive like a hit or two and probably a tank. You should be able to live for a bit. I think we'll be fine. Yeah, we'll be fine.
Nope.
Hmm? Hmm? Wait? What? I think she'd be fine, right? 1 HP, right? Okay, we're back. So, yeah, Collei Quicken. As for my previous video of Ganyu Superconduct, I promised that I would create a Collei Quicken deck tech to follow because of the pieces being very close to each other. And yeah, so welcome back, and here's the Collei deck tech. So just a quick overview of the Collei deck tech before we get started. You have the same characters as Ganyu Superconduct, but instead of Ganyu, you run Collei. It's expected over here. Then you see the usual cards that we run from Paimon to Liben. Then Liu Su and the high voltage are ways to fix our dice. And then stuff that are new are like quick knits and just these others, including strategize. You know, a lot of these cards are still a staple in the Ganyu deck and actually a staple in other decks. So it's pretty easy to also make. So I'll be flashing into the screen right now the cost of the deck should you need it. Feel free to pause the video if you need to check the actual cost. But anyways, let's go back to the actual deck. This deck is more heavy single target, I guess, if I had to say that in ways to put it. Instead of how Ganyu Superconduct likes to cleave into the backline, this is now more focused on the catalyze or the quicken reaction. So for those of you that can recall, quicken basically gives a +1 damage when the dendro reaction quicken happens, and the next 3 instances of electro or dendro get a +1 damage buff. Yeah, that's pretty much quicken in a nutshell, and we want to utilize that quicken trigger of an extra +1 damage for everything that we do, since our entire deck is Electro and Dendro. And I believe that the core piece of the deck and what makes the deck very, very, very good is actually Collei's talent card, which is the Floral Sidewinder. This is pretty good because it just costs 3 dice, the same amount of dice that you need to cast a skill. Unlike how other talent cards work, they seem to cost more. But this one costs the same and it gives you an extra piece of advantage. Actually, it's huge advantage. It says after Collei equips this card, immediately use Floral Brush once. After your Collei, who has this card equipped, uses Floral Brush, during this round, when your character skill trigger Dendro-related reactions, deal 1 Dendro damage. This can be done once per round. And this is a really, really good effect, because you're gonna be triggering Quicken anyways. And it'll be the only Dendro-related reaction that we will care about. And after you do that, you deal 1 extra Dendro damage after the fact. So your opponent still gets the Dendro aura, or I forgot what it's called, the element imposed on them. And you get to trigger more and more catalyze to always refresh your +3. This is actually really good, and how you want to play the deck is actually as it goes. You actually want to get this card into your starting hand. Nothing else matters. As much as possible, you want Floral Sidewinder to be on the ready, so whenever you do a Dendro-related action, or if you just start off with just Collei to kick off your skill along with the talent, it gets to trigger the Floral Sidewinder as much as possible. So usually how we play this deck is that we start off with Fischl, and then we place Oz, and then we trigger Collei's Dendro reaction with Floral Sidewinder. You could also probably do the opposite, as Floral Sidewinder does not check if it's Collei doing the Dendro reaction. You could actually have Keqing or Fischl trigger it, which is actually very, very neat. So that's pretty much the core of the deck. You want to gun down your opponent's characters, which is so much single target, catalyze, quicken damage, as you could see in some of these gameplays, even including in the intro, where I stupidly left my Collei to take the brunt of all the damage. If you could actually do this right, and your opponent refuses to switch characters at the beginning, well, they're really just screwed. Finally, let's just go to the pros and cons of the deck. For the pros, the Collei deck is actually cheap to build. It's actually cheaper to build than the Ganyu Superconduct. It is faster than the Ganyu Superconduct in terms of dealing with your enemy, especially in the PvP setting. If it's the normal 3 characters versus 3 characters, it's pretty much that. And then you can also cover a wide variety of the PvE challenges, just like Ganyu Superconduct. I believe anything that Ganyu SC can do, Collei Quicken can do also. But it's also competitive enough for the PvP. Should you wish to fight people online, this will help you fight against the OTKs, the Kenkis, and whatever other decks that may show up. As for the cons, it is still, like Ganyu SC, is a pretty fragile deck. The reason why we run the Lotus Flower Crisp is that it's our only defense. If ever your characters are very easily hit and disrupted, so if you get disrupted by Ayaka Freezes or Magu Kenki, it's pretty much curtains for you, especially for your Collei. It's slower than other OTK decks. I think you could probably get a kill, but if your opponent plays well enough, you'll still pop off onto the 3rd round. And then finally, I think it's a bit more complex for new players, trying to just make sure that Floral Sidewinder is always in your hand. You want to balance your cards so that you get always that reaction on the first turn. Do you start with Collei? Do you start with Fischl? Maybe you swap to Keqing. There's a bit more variety rather than Ganyu Superconduct, where the game plan's pretty straightforward. This one is, you get to do the same thing, but with Floral Sidewinder as the card main focus, but still. Anyways, I think that's all I can think of for now. As per usual, if you guys like the video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and I hope you wait out for more Genshin card game content, as I'll still be making more in the future. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Alright, see ya!